All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, welcome to Cleveland Heights City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It is June 1st, 2026 at 6:01. Addie, would you please read the roll?
Cobb.
Here.
Larson. Posh.
Here.
DeWitt Foy.
Here.
Cohen. Here. Kuda.
Here.
Stone. Here.
Vice President Larson is actually helping a sick friend tonight and she is excused. The first thing we're gonna do is go over legislation. First legislation, this is first readings, is 111/2026. This is requested for adoption this evening. An ordinance to amend certain subparagraphs of ordinance number 2241-2025 related to appropriations and other expenditures of the city of Cleveland Heights.
I see. Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Lozinski,
This is a combination of several different items.
could you come up and sit here?
Sure.
It
It would be my honor.
No, we wanna get a good look at you.
That's what happens when Bill's late, right? This is a combination of several different items. The first one we had discussed previously that relates to the Crossroad settlement, and that's two components for a total of $554,650. That will be coming out of unencumbered fund balance within the general fund. The second piece is for the dairy demolition, and it amounts to $226,875, but it'll be offset 100% with a grant. So net to the city in 26 will be zero. But unfortunately, we have to spend that money, then ask for reimbursement, but we'll get it in both this year so I can make sure that it nets zero.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
So just on the cover sheet, just to make sure it says that the land bank grant reimbursement is $226,875, but that the project total is $298,875. So were we able to make that less, or is
Oh,
that-
no, I'll get to the piece you're missing is 72,000.
That's right, that's what we have to cover.
That is new
New.
coming out of 26 this
Right.
year, correct?
Okay,
And then we also have 200,000 within CDBG budgeted that we will use those funds. So the project is really close to 500 grand total. And then the last two pieces, both had POs carried over from 2025. One for the Napa, the other for the Taylor Road Merchants. And
Go ahead.
but what we have to do is we have to decertify the POs that we have and put them particularly to the Napa as well as particularly to the Taylor Road Merchants. And when we do that, it's still coming from 25 monies, but it zeroes out the appropriation because we're decertifying it. So then we have to do it for the current year. The net effect to the 26 budget is zero though, because these were carried over from last year.
Fair enough. Questions? All right, I do. So on the Crossroads settlement, when was that legislation passed? You remember when that allowed for the differentiation between how people are assessed?
Initially in the early 2000s.
Okay, so it's like 20 years old, maybe more. And I know this is like probably an impossible question, but I would take it that was not a foreseeable. I mean, if whoever was law director then would probably say this was not a foreseeable problem at that time.
Well, I would say that the city was doing what it believed was appropriate to protect residents and renter residents from absentee landlords, out of town, out of county landlords. And that continued in place for a number of years. And the court determined that it was that the charging of the fee that was involved was not lawful. The city, didn't agree with that and filed the appeal, but that is in the process of being resolved. Instead of further litigating it, because we can continue to require the registration information, but without charging. And so there will be legislation coming to council at the next council meeting to make the changes to those provisions, to remove the fee provisions, but to continue to solicit that information so that Allen's Department of Housing has that in order to, facilitate finding these folks when enforcement is necessary.
And I take it there were other lawsuits of this nature in other cities,
Yeah, these kinds of issues are litigated.
and it's all come out the same as far as.
I have not done a comprehensive
Yeah.
survey of this.
It's just kind of an unfortunate thing.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
so does this mean we have to undo that legislation that happened in the past from the other, council of many years ago that agreed to this process? Or is this more of an administrative process?
Well, the legislative process will be council's legislative process. And again, we'll have legislation for council's consideration on the 15th to remove the sections of the existing legislation that provide for the charging of the
Okay, so-
$100 fee.
So that's what's coming up next. Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna move on to 112, which is a resolution authorizing the city to apply for funding through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Nature Works Grant Program. Any questions on that? All right, 113, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a change order to an agreement with Renaissance Restoration Limited. This is for $6,400. Did you want to say
Right, so
something?
I was just gonna mention that the reason that it's coming before council for $6,400 is that it pushes the contract to $15,000.
Yeah, so-
Sorry, can we go back up to the Nature Works?
Oh, sure.
I remember when I was at the, this question for Director Gonzalez, that we were at the South Rink community event, and there was the list of priorities, like the draft priorities that the consultants are working on with the master's park plan. And I just wanted to know, because this is specifically for Cumberland Parks playground equipment, how does that fit in with the overall plan and priorities for the playground equipment across the city? Like, is this the next park equipment that needs to get replaced, or is there a specific reason that Cumberland was chosen
Well,
for this grant?
I think that the two next up are Kane Park and Cumberland.
Okay,
And we anticipate Kane Park, we would be able to use next year some CDBG dollars to do Kane Park because of the demographics that fall within
Yeah.
Kane Park and whatnot. So CDBG dollars would not qualify for Cumberland Park.
okay,
So
great.
that's how we decided that we would do CDBG for K Park and then apply for this grant for Cumberland.
Okay, that's great. And then I'm just curious, you may not know, how likely is it? Is this like everybody that applies gets these grants?
No,
or
I mean, it's competitive.
Yeah.
It's very competitive, but with the help of Millennium Strategies, we're gonna make our case as strong as possible. And we're gonna work on some letters of reference and different things like that to try to beef up our case in order to try to make it as competitive as possible for us.
Okay, and you're envisioning a ages 5 through 12 park, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
to add to that, so yes, it's a competitive process, but the selection is based on objective criteria. There's
Yeah.
a score. And so with Millennium, I think that we have a very good shot.
That's great. No, I'm excited. I know we've heard from some residents that, are like, it's starting to look dated and older than the other parks, so it's time. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure, I'm gonna move on to first readings, but was anything we're adding for part
Not
of?
for first reading for now.
Okay, good. Alright, then we have 114, resolution approving the adoption of the 2027 tax budget. I know that the vice president who's not here tonight had her questions answered.
Right.
But any other questions on this one?
Can we just get since this is the first time, can we just get
Just an overview?
Yeah.
Bylaw, we used to do a tax budget, now this is technically called the alternative to the tax budget. What this really does is it gives the county an idea of what we're looking at for 27, where they make sure that when we have our appropriation ordinance for 27, we are not appropriating more money than we have available. So what they do is they create a document called the Official Certificate of Estimated Resources. The first thing I do in the first week of January is I submit and I get an amended one. Because fund balances that we're predicting today to the dollar will not be the fund balances at the end of the year. The revenue will not be the same. The expenditures will not be the same. We will develop that as we're doing the budget for 27. And as soon as that is all in place, come January, I'll be able to tell the county, here's where the fund balance is ended. Here is our new revised revenue numbers and expenditure numbers. They'll do the same process to make sure we're not trying to spend more than we're allowed to, because it's our revised code. And they'll give me our first amendment certificate. So to be honest, I don't spend much time on this budget. It meets state law and it gives the state or the county budget commission the chance to get something out to us. I'm more concerned in our actual budget that we'll pass later in the year.
Thank you.
But in case any county officials are listening, I'm really serious about this.
Alright, 115, an ordinance amending part 1, title 11, chapter 171 of the codified ordinances of the City of Cleveland Heights to enact a new resolution, contracts to youth, adult and senior program services.
Mr. President.
Director, yes.
Let's hear from the director first, and then I'll ask my question.
No, absolutely. So we offer a robust lineup of programming already at the community center. But there's a lot of really cool, fun things out there for youth, adults, seniors that we necessarily can't provide. You know, I gave an example, I think on there of like a Crayola art class that's a week-long art camp and different things like that. Those are things that we can't offer in-house anymore. And so this piece of legislation would just allow us to be able to branch out to outside groups and basically enter into contracts. A lot of these would become like revenue splits. That's very, very popular amongst community centers nowadays, is that they're entering into revenue splits with different outside programming in order to make these things happen. And then it also it just pertains to existing programming too as well too, like our personal training. Our personal training just needs a facelift. We're not trying to kick our personal training out, we're just trying to facelift it a little bit. And the way that we offer our programs, registrations, different things like that. So this piece of legislation will allow us to not only enter into contracts with outside groups, but allow them to basically take in the registrations, administer the programs, and provide anything that goes with those programs. And then at the end of the day, we would just get our percentage of the revenue back. So there are situations where there are programs that don't take in registrations. So we would have to take in the registrations, but then we would just provide them with their portion of the revenue split. So it goes both ways. So that's where the expenditure would come in. But most of this is there would be revenue coming in and no expenditure going out. That makes sense.
Oh, please.
Can we make sure that the contracts get posted on the city's website? I understand our limit is $7,500, but for any that are less than that, can we make sure they get posted, or do we need to add that provision in the legislation? I just want council to be aware of.
I could ask staff to try to remember that.
And then the other comment, just coincidentally, I was over at the community center today talking to Tanya Richardson, who heads up the personal training, and she was saying that under the current contract, she's been hampered in the ability to hire additional fitness people, which she could use because she'd like to grow the program. I think she has 52 people. She thinks she can easily get to 100 people. And I'm assuming this is the kind of legislation that will enable her to be able to do that.
This is 100% the legislation.
Okay.
Is there a selection process? How do you decide?
Yeah, so, a lot of these programs kind of come to us and say, hey, these are the types of things that we offer. I see a lot of these things at the conferences that I go to. They do exhibit halls, and I'd say stuff that we don't even know that exists just by going table to table. And it's like, wow, this would really fit Cleveland Heights. That's how we would go about things, is that we would recruit them, they would come to us. And
So
different.
this would be staff driven primarily, correct?
What's that?
Staff driven.
What do you mean by staff
That like
driven?
the staff would be making the determination.
Oh,
about that.
absolutely, yes,
Thank you.
100% staff driven, yeah, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Just quickly, would there be, if anything was over $50,000, it would still have to come to council, right? So this doesn't change anything about our approval.
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. And it would be very rare
I was
that,
gonna say, it would have to be
because-
a really big program.
yeah, I
for it
mean,
to
we're talking
that
like,
threshold.
on average, it's like 70-30 splits.
Okay,
So like, our payout would be, 70%, which would, if it's $50,000, that program, we want it here all the time, basically, That'd be very rare.
thank you.
Does this change anything with liability insurance
Read
requirements
my mind.
of instructors? Cause I know that has been
That
a
would all,
challenge.
so liability insurance, just like we do any other contract, is that we would require liability insurance from the programmer that's doing the programming in our facility or at our fields or anything like that. So,
And so this doesn't change that, these are still outside contractors versus in-house that would be covered under ours.
yes, and in these contracts, more than anything, is where we would need the liability insurance because they're running the programs 100% themselves.
So that, cause I remember some vendors were saying this was gonna be cost prohibitive, but you're saying our insurance is covering it now?
No,
Okay, so what happened to
there's some independent contractors, if you guys remember, that we did some legislation to add some positions in the part-time salary schedule in order to cover some of these independent contractors. So what we did is that we took some programmers off of independent contractor and put them on the city's payroll books. That now they're covered under the city's payroll,
that's what
so.
But to be clear, Director Gonzalez was saying that if people are contracting with us, they will bring their own liability insurance.
100%, and that's where I'm saying, like, we'll need it more than ever when because they're running the programming.
Alright, moving on to second readings. 100 is a resolution declaring the necessity of assessing a portion of the expense of street lighting and street lighting, period. And I'll see if I have any questions. Anybody wanna speak on this?
I mean, I can, at the last go around, we talked, there's two components. Currently, the street lighting is 92 cents a foot, a half a year. And the Next one is for the forestry, that is at $1.08. And this one, we're leaving status quo. And based on a financial forecast, we will not have to, we will come back by law when we want to just renew it. But we will not look to make any changes until at least 2030 for the street lighting. So this is more or less just a renewal of what we currently have in place.
101, a resolution declaring the necessity of assessing a portion of the expense of improving streets and parkways, including grading, draining, curbing, paving, repaving, repairing, sweeping, and cleaning thereof. You know, love that. Removing snow, so forth. Let me jump here and see if any questions on that?
I believe we had a pending question from last time around if this would increase the capacity of the operations for these purposes, or if it was just to maintain what we have.
You know, I'm sorry, I actually forgot to ask about that, so I can make a note and we can get back to you.
But on this one, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
This is to provide the services we currently have. I think one of the questions was, is this gonna set aside where we would buy additional trees? We don't buy trees out of this fund. So if we're gonna buy trees, they come out of a separate fund. So the fact that we're upgrading this now and looking to keep that solid through 2030 will not bring in additional trees. We have other mechanisms to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was under the impression we were asked to vote on this for approval at our last meeting. We wanted it to sit out there and we wanted a second reading, just so, because there would be an impact for residents, because it's on their tax roll, to just sort of see if we got any comment, or give the community the ability to make comments during, you know, public comment and approve it tonight. I mean, that was my impression. And I assume we're still gonna do that. I assume that the plan is to vote on this and not wait for any answers. Is that correct?
I have no problem, I just, it'd be good to know what capacity wise what this does, but.
I'm just
yeah, no
curious.
problem. Yeah, and I agree that you know, it would be interesting to see if we have anybody here. And we had said, Director Brzezinski, just remind, I think it was $26 a year extra, or $30.
Well,
For a
it
standard lot,
depends, cause there
right,
are
it's
some
different.
like larger lots. But right now, most of them are either 40 a half, 45 a half, and 51 a half. And for the 45 lot is gonna go up, like you said, $26 a year or 13 a half.
Right.
Thank you.
Worth repeating, just so we know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Where are we, 104, I think, a resolution accepting a grant from the Ohio Department of Public Safety's Office of Criminal Justice Services, Ohio Body Worn Camera Grant.
Just as a reminder, I'm recusing myself from discussion and any discussion and vote on this matter.
Does anybody have any questions before I get to mine? I didn't really understand the second paragraph of the memo. This starts with the total award amount of this non-matching grant is $41,400. And then I know that 165 must have been just rounded down to the actual amount. So it's a 5-year program and we got a grant for the first year and that was the deal, right? Like
Correct.
you get the first, buy 5, get 1 free, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is something we're gonna have to do anyway. So that's why you take advantage of the deal.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, they say body sweat can deteriorate Kevlar.
I can see that.
Most people don't think so, but you certainly don't wanna be in that situation where you're in a lawsuit. So unfortunately, you gotta go with the program and change it when you need to.
Any questions? Sorry, I gotta page through two things at the same time. There we go. All right. 105, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Wade Trem. Any questions on that?
Quick question, are these gonna be ARPA dollars used for this? Of the 18 million or so that we allocated, does anyone know?
No,
Okay.
that money had to be locked in a couple years ago.
All right, and then 106 is a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with the Taylor Merchants Association. I'm gonna need a motion, even though we put that one whereas clause in there. I mean, that it's in this reading, we do have to amend because it wasn't in the original.
About Montevita, you mean?
Yeah.
Although, let me just, point of information from the law director, it is in our packet as amended, so
I know, but
we still.
we asked already, so.
I think it's just good practice to do it on record.
I'm okay
Would you-
either way.
I'm happy to do it. Would you like?
Please.
I will move that we add.
Well, we'll do it in
Here.
there.
Well,
do it
do we have, fine, so we don't
That's
have to
out
do it
there,
in here.
yeah.
I'll do it
But
on
any
there.
questions about the legislation? Or anything? Let's see. Brian Anderson here?
Well,
Yes,
Myra's here also.
and Myra's here, okay, now I see that.
And most of
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a number of.
Yeah, good representation. So I know that there's a plan, a long-range plan to make sure that this keeps going after the 2 years. With is the plan after the 2 years fees or is it a SID?
And I thought this might come up, so I actually prepared something, so if I can go
Yeah,
ahead
sure.
and share that.
Please.
So I'm
Say-
Laura Delaney. Excuse me, I'm president of the Taylor Merchants Association Board. And I wanna say, this, and I mean this in all sincerity, President Kuda and members of the city council, on behalf of the Taylor Merchants Association, we wanna express our gratitude for the funds that you are going to be voting on today. This has been a long time coming, and it really matters a lot to us. These funds will enable us to change the experience of the Taylor Road for everyone. We understand that these funds are for a 2-year program to address the most immediate needs of the district. The merchants are engaged and excited to move forward with marketing events and beautification of the area so that more people can come and enjoy the unique character of this district. We've begun discussions to transition to a special improvement district. We would involve building owners, merchants, and the Cleveland Heights Economic Development Department to develop this plan and to work out its feasibility. The Merchants Association is not a SID, but we are in a position to connect with the stakeholders for creating a SID. We are developing this option with the hope of implementing it in 2028. I also want to express our gratitude to Mayor Petrus for supporting this initiative and facilitating a lot of conversations. And then the Department of Economic Development, I have to say, was really instrumental in this entire process. They did a great job facilitating communications and really helping us develop this blueprint for success. Especially Eric Zamp, Julie Kaufman, and Brian Anderson. So thank you all for the work that you did, and we're really excited to get going.
Thank you, Laura, and we're very excited about this too, and Noble as well, Nava as well. We really wanted to use ARPA money to help the areas of the city that needed the most help, and I think this is a really good start. I had a couple of questions, but I want to see if anybody else does first. All right, so this is under the goals of so I'm on page 148. The repositioning the image of Taylor from a drive-through street to a district of interesting and diverse businesses. A lot of good things here. I really hope that the merchants can engage the landlords and let them know about all the storefront renovation programs we have here and money that's available. And then paging down to the timeline, it's not, I appreciate everything that's there. I think it's all important stuff, but I don't see a timeline, an actual timeline there.
For the SID?
No, this is, so now I'm on page 149. The timeline it appears to me to be kind of a to-do list. But there's no real times on there, like we're gonna do this by, September, or was it not supposed to be that? I don't.
We actually submitted a comprehensive timeline several months ago, so I don't know whether it did go through or what.
Well,
Maybe this was put in by the lawyers without attaching dates to it or something.
okay,
Yeah, we did have dates, or,
okay, I mean, we just had what's in front of us.
Yeah.
All right, so there is a timeline and I'm sure I can find it somewhere. And then let me just see here, one more note here. So on the ongoing efforts, this is at the bottom of 149. One of the things is maintaining communication with city council and departments and so forth. Is this like emails? What's the?
So we will be adhering to the guidelines for IRS and also the state, that we have to post everything on our website, and we shall do that once we have the website up and running. So you'll know all the dates of the meetings, you'll have all the minutes from the meetings, you'll be able to attend any meeting you're interested in, and we're available anytime to answer questions.
So just keeping up by us looking at the website for. Okay.
And we'll also be in touch, we're checking in with economic development on a quarterly basis, and so they also can provide you with some kind of summary to.
I'll just say from my seat as chair of planning and development committee, I would like to we have the SIDS, we have the merchants associations, and we can incorporate that into our kind of annual plan for committee of the whole updates, so we can have, whether it's once a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Twice a year, depending as time allows. Or if there's something, certainly invite any of the merchants associations or SIDS to reach out to me or to council leadership if there's something happening that you would like to, we can have a reciprocal.
We would be delighted to share the success we have.
Yes.
Okay, there's not gonna be any problem letting that show from the tops.
Right, and thank you, and I'm glad for that question, because it is something that we've been talking to the planning staff about, is how we can integrate all of the things that are happening in planning and development into our council meetings, so we can update the public and share that, not just with us, but with everyone watching and attending.
Very good. Anything else? And then we have to add, yes, 103, I don't actually have the legislation, but 103, 2026, and we'll add by substitution a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Friends of Kane Park to support Kane Park programming for the 2026 and 2027 seasons, and I've been assured that whatever needed to be shored up is shored up.
Yep,
Can we get a thumbs
all
up?
good. Yeah, I mean, I think we were having little back and forth just about the amount of support they can give us this year, which we've agreed on. And then this agreement extends through 2027 as well, so it has the 2027 numbers in there. And just what, it's a good agreement, it's a good blueprint for all of our future seasons with them.
Thank you, and that was Suzanne Conway, by the way.
Sorry.
Kane Park Manager.
And Suzanne, since I think this is probably up on the packet now, but if it
It will
wasn't
be.
there,
It will
it will
be,
be,
yes.
okay, would you just share what some of the terms of the agreement?
Sure, I brought copies as well, that's fine. So the term is for 2 years, and then the total amount they're going to be able to give us this year, because they missed a year of fundraising, for this year for the for Kane Park programming, they're gonna give $1,050. Then they are also going to, for the Arts Festival prizes, they're gonna give us $1,950. We're going to give them a schedule which they can choose a specific show that they're going to, sponsor, which is basically just a name. And then they're going to, which sometimes will be a free one, but we haven't quite gotten that far yet, but at least we have the agreement. They are going to pay the stipends for some of our free performances moving forward. This summer, I think we've cleared that, but moving forward, they'll pay some of the stipends for some of our Alma performances like Yiddish Cup, New Long Road, our Local 4 shows, which is the Local 4 Music Fund. We do free shows. So all those free shows that we're offering in the Alma, they'll pay for the artist fees for some of those. And we are going to, the city will give them 50 discounted tickets per regularly scheduled show at Kane Park. That's $2 off per ticket, up to 50 tickets. And that's gonna be as much as possible in 2026, although moving forward, we'll add that into when we're booking the show, we'll add that into those, at this point, we'll just do what we have available, they're aware of that. So in the future, those will be 50 pavilion tickets, they'll get for $2 off per, up to 50 tickets. And that's for all their members, it's a good way for them to sell memberships. We'll give them a table to sell memberships at each performance. They can also solicit donations with the raffle, that kind of thing. If we have volunteer needs, like if we want people to, if we want to have a pickup day or a garden day or something, Friends of Kane Park are willing to help us with that. And that's basically what the terms are.
Sorry, this is a little moved by question.
Other than our now memorializing our agreement with them in writing, are there any significant changes from the prior
Not significant.
practices?
No, I would say that it's pretty similar to what we've done in the past with them. So there's nothing significant that's changing, but this is at least codifies, because I'm not sure that we've had an agreement. I'm not sure that we've always had an agreement with them, but this kind of codifies what will be our relationship
It was
with
a
one another.
handshake.
Yeah.
It was-
And I just think it's great that we're resuming a relationship with
course.
this organization, because so many of these organizations, we severed relationships with
Yeah.
over the last few years, and so I'm really giving the mayor a lot of credit
Yeah, this is important.
because we can't do it alone, and this is a valuable partnership for Kane Park.
For sure.
I'm not sure if I saw it in here, if it was in some of the back and forth, but I think it would be great to have sort of an end of year review.
Sure.
In addition to the monetary contributions they're making. I know they do a lot of beautification projects, they donate native plants and have volunteer cleanup days. So highlighting all of those things as well, so that we know the overall total contribution would be great.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, very good. Time to move on. We're a little behind, and it's time for the Brian Iorio show. So we have an ARPA update. So looking forward to that.
Yes.
He does a very nice job.
I don't know if I'm gonna tell you about the show.
Always.
This isn't my show, this is the city show,
That's-
because ARPA is going well. So, this is our June update, we try to do this 4 times a year, so a month, like the month after we do reporting. One major milestone is that through the work of Tiffany in finance, we've done a detailed reconciliation of there. So this is the most confident I feel about this presentation, of all the presentations.
Look up.
So that's just a summary, we'll publish this so it'll make it easier to read. Just a reminder of how things were allocated by city council at the end of 2024 when we had to have everything obligated. council made some pretty major decisions in regards, by that time they'd made some decisions about how the spending was going to go and significant portion of sewer and water, a lot of public infrastructure, and then some programs. At this point, we're 88% of ARPA funds have been expended. Deadline is 100% by the end of this year, so we're doing well. We'll get into the nitty-gritty in the next few slides. So sewer and water, we're at 97% of the funds that have been expended. Up $18,650,000. So that's pretty significant. That's a big round of applause should go to the Public Works Department. That should mention that represents 18 projects. It's actually more than that, but we consolidated for reporting purposes. We consolidated to 18 projects. Parking garage improvements.
Is there a map of that?
I'm not sure if there's a total map. There is a map by year, but I'll see if there's one that has it.
Yeah, that's the same.
Hey, Brian, can you let us know if we're at risk? I mean, for example, if you go back to the last one, 3% of what 18 million is actually a fair amount of money. I mean, if you could just let us if we're at risk, if we're not gonna be able to meet the 100% spend.
Sure, and that's sort of what Tiffany was doing as she met with different departments, get an idea of where they are with each project. So I think for the most part, we're doing really well. There might be a few projects where we may have to come to council and adjust how we're spending just to make sure we meet the deadline, but I think at this point, we don't have to do that.
Okay, thanks.
So next up is parking garage improvements. So 2 major parking garage rehabs are undertaken with ARPA funds, Coventry and Surrey. Surrey is almost complete, Coventry is done. So it was a long time coming to get that elevator back to work, and we're all better for it. Next is public safety. A lot of this hasn't changed for public safety since the beginning of these reports, but really the major category that's still being worked on is the surveillance camera project, and that's ongoing.
Brian, just
It's also important to notice that we have received the second ambulance, so I don't think I singled that out.
on the surveillance cameras, because it's obviously a sensitive, we're not talking about the contract with Flock. We're talking about a separate contract. Can you just give a little background on
To
it?
be honest, I don't know that many details
Okay.
on this project, but
Does that sit with IT and Director Prosser?
yeah.
The surveillance cameras on telephone poles, wired versus unwired.
Yeah, I don't believe
Antennas.
Can we make sure, because I think Director Prosser has to come back to do an update, can we make sure
Yeah.
that that's part of the?
We're actually trying to figure that out. I have, concerns about time and, these cameras have been sitting around for a couple of years, whether or not they're obsolete, but
Well, that came up before in the last
I know,
council. Right.
Go ahead.
Next is Parks and Rec. 89% of these funds have been spent. The remaining 11% is largely due to the Kane Park ADA bathroom project, and then finishing up the Seating Hill project, Kane Park Hill Seating. That project's changed names, so I'm confused. This is a great picture of the turf that was installed. A lot of great improvements to our parks through ARPA. Next is just a little rundown of what's been complete. Just see Kane Park's near completion and the Kane Park restrooms is slated.
The strip has grass on it, doesn't it? In between the.
Yeah, this was a picture that was taken
Okay.
the last time we had someone.
President Kuda.
Yeah.
Since we have Director Gonzalez still there, can I just ask him a question? On, now that we've had so many substantial changes, like new bathrooms and Dennison has pickleball courts, is there like one place where we're gonna have all this information? I know the website update is happening separately, but if people wanna know like what's new or what are all the resources we have, is the only place the website, is there some sort of?
At the current moment, yes. Yeah, I mean, we can try to work on something that shows like all of our park amenities.
Yeah, that's
which
what
are
I was,
kinda-
yeah, that's what I'm, because there's been so many changes and so many investments.
Do you
In
mean
fact-
to promote it or to see it?
both, I think, but I was just talking to my husband, we were talking about somebody who plays pickleball, and I said, oh yeah, I think we have pickleball courts at Denison, but I said, I can't remember, we have to, so that's the type of thing where, as people are getting used to all the new amenities, it might be helpful to have everything in one
Are we
place.
putting out a focus?
Yes, yeah, we are. So we could certainly include some of that in there, and I think that we have previously, but we also put out a regular programming guide. And so maybe it's the case that even though it's not programming, we could provide an overview of some of the facilities.
And it is on my radar to go park by park and just relist all of our park amenities because some of them are outdated, some of them don't exist, some of them are new, so.
I believe there's an article about ARPA focus that's coming out this summer, so should be some information on that.
That's correct, yeah, we'll have an article about that.
Housing assistance, so this encompasses not just what the city council, Cleveland Heights City Council allocated, but also some other funding sources, particularly from the state of Ohio and Cuyahoga County. Overall, we received $2.8 million in, let's say, programming funds. 1.8 of that's already been encumbered. You can see 1.68 is actually expensed. Those funds had earlier deadlines, and now we're working the portion that's Cleveland Heights ARPA. It says 400,000 Cleveland Heights ARPA, that makes up 300,000 for clearance activities, and 100,000 for lead abatement. The 600,000 that was also part of ARPA is not actually ARPA, it's general fund. The whole freeing up general fund funds thing.
Yeah, but it's ARPA money that's in it.
Right, we call it ARPA, but it's technically.
Yeah.
And for Councilwoman Larson specifically asked if we could, and Council President Kuda asked if we could single out Noble. So far 37% of those projects occurred for the neighborhoods surrounding. Down payment assistance, that's a program that was 150,000 of actual ARPA, 600,000 we call it revenue placement, general fund. That program is on a slight pause, but back to action after the next council meeting. Exterior repair residential, so 2.5 million was allocated. 800,000 of that was Cleveland Heights. So part of that is the concrete sidewalk program. Part of that is some funds on the new we had encumbered by the end of 2024, and then home repair resource centers program. But then the balance is general fund.
Do you know how much in the last two Alpine assistance exterior repairs still unspent? Is it like that 80, is it 88% spent
So
like
I
everything
can
else?
do a percentage of 189750 spent. This one, there's a lot that's still not
Okay, yeah,
unspent,
just, okay.
but that was done on purpose. We're spending all the money that's expiring first, and then we knew that we could rehab that, $2.5 million worth of homes with 2 employees.
But we could do that into
Right, it's a
next year, yeah.
I have a feeling that's gonna recur. So let's say programming, just a rundown of the funds that were available, let's say Ohio through a variety of ways, the direct allocation from the state, from the county and from the Board of Health. Received $2.8 million. Another 500,000 for legislators, which was, like I said in the last slide, 200,000 or general fund, 300,000 of actual ARPA, and then 500,000 for healthy homes. Down payment assistance, this is a little advertisement for when the program's back up and running. So far, 13 home buyers have been assisted. I think almost half were from the local neighborhood, 40%, so that certainly think we're doing pretty good in the whole city. Residential exterior repairs, so we've actually gone through our garage repair program funds and dangerous tree program funds. If there's a desire by city council and rest of the leadership, we could sort of add more, but take it out of the rest of the pot. But so far, we spent these ones are obligated. The driveways, sidewalks, aprons, and pathways, that's transitioned now into a doing it by neighborhood, so we're doing qualified census tracts throughout the city. So that was no longer taking applications, but that's why I crossed it out, so just to make it clear.
Brian, sorry, just on the, the garage repair program and the exterior home and the dangerous tree. I would love to explore from the planning department's perspective, if that's something they would like to see as an operational budget expense ongoing, because I mean, we know that garage repairs, like the garage, it is really,
It's tough.
it's tough,
Something
and
like
it just makes it makes that property look
And one of the
terrible.
things that made these type of program attractive to us is that under HUD regulations, if it's a detached garage, we're not allowed to spend a CDBG on it. If it's attached, we are. It's a
And most of
sort
our
of
garages
biased
are
against older
detached,
communities
yeah.
that have detached garages, but that's what the rule is. So it would create definitely flexibility for the issue.
So I know, I don't see Director Zampt here, but I wonder if City Administrator Reese, you could convey that just to consider, and then we'd love their recommendations on that for when we get to budget conversations. Thank you.
Community Investment Fund is really just another name for economic development. There's a third-party business assistance program that well known as UBIZ. That was the contractor that did the work. All of those funds have been spent. The business assistance program, that's where NAVA funding and then Taylor Association funding is coming out of. The remainder is will be the plan is to design a program for direct business assistance. And then there are several planning studies that come out of this fund. Noble and Taylor Road Streetscape Design, Noble Road Market Study, and Taylor Road Study.
So does that mean in the business assistance program line that is actual ARPA dollars that still need to be expended, or are those revenue
It's
replacement?
actually, those were actual ARPA. I didn't update this slide. I do have that.
Next slide.
No, the next one, actually, the second.
Oh, right here.
Yeah,
So this is how much was expended. This is all general.
okay, so we're not, okay. And so because we were able to move the money around, what you're saying for that second row is that the planning and development department is going to be considering how best to use the remainder of the funds. Okay, and
I should
then,
have pointed out, it's a good thing that you pointed that out, because the first one and the third one are actual ARPA funds, the second one is actually general. Because I have GF.
and while Director Brzezinski is here, I think 600 and change of that is for the merchants associations that we're moving today, is that correct?
We had 400 budgeted for that,
For Taylor.
for Taylor. Or you're combining both?
I'm combining both, Taylor and NABA, it's 305 and 317.
Yeah, so it'll be under
So that's essentially, I think,
two.
is that the rest of it? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah, some of it was in the planning study.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still worthwhile. You know, program, $200,000 could go a lot.
What's 7 more minutes?
Nonprofit assistance, so 17 nonprofits were funded directly from city council. 70% of those funds have been expended this month. I'll be sending out like a statement to all the nonprofits. Anyone that's sort of under a certain spending threshold will ask for a workout plan just so we have an idea if you're gonna spend the money, because if not, we'll look at our options of repurposing.
Do you have any concerns of the
There's a couple I haven't heard
nonprofits?
from in a long time, but I'm hopeful that when I send out this sort of reminder, I'll have a little bit.
And then just hypothetically, what are some of the options available?
So it'd have to be something that was already obligated by the December 31st, 2024. It'd likely probably go into other projects that are in ARPA that might be over what the original budget was. And it would have to be something that complies with that. It depends what source of funds that came from. So some of the nonprofits were revenue replacement, some of the nonprofits were actually ARPA, regular ARPA. So it depends which nonprofit.
Just on this, if I can, Councilor DeWitt-Foy and all members of council, we are monitoring this very closely. And so Brian and Tiffany and I and the finance director and and the mayor, we're all working very closely on this to make sure that 100% of this is spent and everything. So continue to provide updates obviously before the end of the year.
But the nonprofits that got big awards, they're all due.
Just a reminder for us that weren't here when this was done, it's these two questions. One, these are on like a reimbursement basis, right? So the nonprofits spend and then they request reimbursement of the funds.
Right.
And then, oh, great. And then the other question, is there a plan for having the nonprofits provide in writing a final report once all the money is expended so we can see the
So they're submitting
results?
reports when they submit invoices, but yeah, they'll be a closeout.
Yeah, and I was asking was not so much a financial report because presumably,
Right,
but yeah,
yeah.
outcomes and what objectives were achieved.
Actually,
Yeah.
no offense to the finance department, that's more what I'm concerned with.
Okay, we're on the same page. Okay, great, thank you.
So you can see the variety of nonprofits that were funded and we're at the time of, let's say, middle of May. Does that sound right, Tiffany?
Yeah, oh, May 15th.
It's May. So you can see there's a few that there might be a little bit of concern, but it's like Keston Center. I know we work with through CDBG, so I know that a big part of that percentage is probably the Cleveland Heights Improvement Corporation.
What was that meant for?
The CSE.
Oh, that was the 300,000 that we have sitting, which we're, okay, got it, thank you.
That was actual ARPA revenue replacement, so it's a little bit more flexible. Those funds are a little bit more flexible than actual ARPA.
The CIC is revenue replacement money?
But it's actual ARPA, so it has to be spent by the end of this year.
Oh.
We're still waiting for a final.
That's the problem with the terminology. So we say revenue replacement, we mean general fund. Trying to be more. ARPA investments in the Noble Corridor, this map, this is the 2025 capital improvement projects for public works. That we said look to skip as combining. It gives you an idea of some of the investments in Noble. We didn't use the sewer and water because so say you see this purple all over the city, we get an invoice for all over, so it's hard to parse out which part is Noble. We could do that, it's just gonna take.
Can you just move the slide up so we can see the total?
Yeah, but the key is up at the top there. So there is a sewer, yeah, okay, that's actually a question I asked earlier, so the sewer projects are on there.
Yeah, they kind of spread out, so you can't really attribute a whole project to
Understood.
Noble without going through everything. And then just some anecdotes about Noble. 2.1 has been spent on housing repairs, parks and properties. 6 of 13 DPAs, 37 of 89 exterior repair program projects. Actually, 96% of the ARPA lit clearance was Noble. Noble and Taylor. So the way I should preface the way that I define Noble for the purposes of this is anything north of Mayfield and east of Taylor. So those census numbers. And then 7 of the 23 businesses were on Noble or east of Taylor. That's it.
Was there a list of the businesses that were awarded UViz?
Oh, yeah, we do have a list.
Could you share that with us?
If I can just make a quick comment, American Rescue Plan Act funding has been great, but it's very complicated. And when Mayor Petras took over, this needed a lot of work, and Tiffany has really stepped up to provide the detail that's been necessary in working with departments on ARPA reconciliation. She's done a tremendous job, so really want to thank her. And then Brian, not only putting this presentation together regularly, having the historical perspective as well as working with nonprofits and community organizations has been great too. So I also want to acknowledge him. So thank you.
None of this is possible without the law.
Nothing is possible without the law department. So.
We want to leave the other. And Chris, right here. He's watching, so.
No, thank you for that. I'm gonna get a little out of my lane just for a second. I would love to see comms, I'm talking to Director Shantz now. There's all these people getting help with their garages and help with this now. It'd be nice to have before and after pictures, maybe a testimonial or two,
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we are going to focus in on ARPA dollars
largely in the focus and then get granular on certain projects. And so, there are community members who are interested, willing to be, spotlighted in that way, that's great. But otherwise, I do think that those are lovely stories to tell through with their social media.
We've got a few, thank you. I won't say gifts, but like cards. Gifts, there is.
You said cards, not cars.
Cards.
Yeah.
Not baseball.
We've got too many cars in the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, you talked about before and after pictures. I mean, we have 3 new council members here. But prior to you coming on, this council and the former administration, this ARPA stuff was a really bumpy road. I mean, full of potholes. It was a mess. And I wish we had before and after pictures on the way it was at least when I was asked to come on to this body and what you guys have done today. I mean, oh my Lord, it was just a mess. And the law department coming in,
And a lot of
bringing
that
outside
is-
counsel to deal with it. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I honest to God felt like we would never be able to spend this money, and how it was being spent was not transformational. And I think a lot of us really disturbed. And Mayor, you were right in the center of it, and how you've taken this on is really amazing, so thank you.
We're fighting those fights together. It was just after you joined city council, and I'm sure you were maybe regretting at times that you threw your name into the ring. But yes, folks have been working very hard on getting the money out.
Thank you.
End of 24 was pretty.
That's intense. Thank you. That was really, really comprehensive and very easy to read and understand.
We'll post this online.
Yes, yeah, that's great.
Like I said.
That is terrific. The committee of the whole, I'm smiling because this is a new thing for us, to do the committees within the committee of the whole meetings every other Monday. And I just, we had 5 committees on the last one. I just want to ask, I guess I have a couple of questions. I want to make sure that I don't want to micromanage the part about the order that it goes in. I expect, y'all just contact Daddy and say, well, I need to go first because such and such director is here, or you have some people that, you don't want to keep late, and I'm fine with all that. I just think 5 is probably too much. And I would even say, even when we have 4 committees meeting, I think 2 of them should be like a half hour, if it's 4. That's just my comments,
I just wonder, I think, we're moving faster and faster, which is a good thing. I mean, streamlining and adding things in as they need to be added. But I did have a question actually from a staff member today who said, so is there a regular time for the housing, committee meeting? And I'm not sure it feels to me like we're moving away from that. So I think that's a question we need to answer is, I think ours used to be the second Monday of the month, and maybe we don't want to do that. But as we think about this process, are we going to have, set asides for that the staff can prepare for and understand that this is going to be a regular thing? So
Well, I saw the disappointment in your face when you said, well, we're gonna move, because
yeah, because I actually did go to Addie. I actually did.
I
But that's water under the bridge. But the bigger question
well,
really
I think
is,
everybody's going to Addie. What I think though is at the end of the day, this just has to be coordinated in a way that we don't have to shuffle things at the meeting because we're keeping staff late. I think that kind of happened that last time. So
Yeah, so I guess my kind of suggestion would be to think about it less as committee meetings within a committee. It's just a committee of the whole meeting. And if we've got, 5 people from finance that have to come in, we can put whatever they need to up front. We don't have to go like all the finance topics all at once and all the, we can just do a single agenda with the topics.
is there a way we can have in advance maybe a working agenda for the next 3 or 4. I mean, I just spoke to you about a request from Director Zamp for time in July. So that you could start to see the framework and we can be a little more, because we didn't know that there were gonna be 5
Yeah,
meetings. We
certainly.
reached just talking to you about our own stuff.
Yeah, anytime that you guys have like a knowledge of, a month from now, you're gonna want this on, let me know, cause I will put it in when you tell me ahead of time, so on my mind, I can keep it kind of in track.
I'll just comment, I think I could go either way because I think the flexibility it gives us, and I'm speaking from planning and development, which was on a total other day completely, the ability it gives us if we need to have a discussion on something is really great because it allows us to go with the flow as legislation is needed or as the law department gets things to us, et cetera. On the other hand, I do agree that, I think, which is where we kind of left it when we created this new structure, was that roughly we were going to keep to the original schedule of second Monday being finance, administrative services, and housing, and fourth Monday being community relations
I
and
think we were. I don't know.
and so, I mean,
There were 4 on the
Housing,
list.
housing
No.
is on the second.
right,
Was
the
on
second, and then the fourth Monday was municipal services.
Administrative. Yeah, municipal administrative services. And
No, sorry, I'm messing this up.
No, isn't it?
I'm the last.
Oh, you are the, so
It's
health and safety, finance and administrative
finance,
services committee. Right, and then the second Monday was housing, community relations, and what am I missing?
Finance.
It's like the 7 dwarfs. Oh, and finance.
No, finance is the
No.
last one.
there's housing.
Well, we had planning and development there originally on the second Monday, but then we shifted it out. Anyway, I think if we had that rough framework where and then able to be flexible, I still think the problem is gonna be planning and development, but I'm meeting with Director Zamp this week to figure out what's coming up down the pike, and that largely will depend on the zoning code updates and the other work that's ongoing.
I think sticking with that rough date and then having flexibility within that based on who needs, staff members to come or not is a good balance.
Just have to remember what the rough framework was.
It was community relations, planning and development, municipal services, and then
And then housing was supposed to be
Housing was
there,
supposed to slot
right,
in.
because,
Yeah.
right.
So, and then admin services, finance and public safety.
so I think the main thing is that you need to be able to when they're saying, here's my agenda for the meeting, the individual chairs, that somehow it's relayed to them who needs to go first, and because they're having staff, that whole staff thing needs to be shared. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just gonna reiterate what I thought, and I mentioned during the retreat, and I use kind of an example of finance. So, finance is a pretty regular, a series of regular occurrences that happen pretty much every single month. And I almost think if we had an individual meeting, and I'm not proposing that, but if we did, or a meeting within a meeting, that whole agenda really needs to be crafted, I think, by the director of finance and the council chair. And I would also say, for Parks and Rec, it's between the department head and Joe. And there's regular things that I think committees should be aware of. Now that it can be committee as a whole, but it's like, well, maybe October is a report out of, well, we had all the summer rec programs. Really, what came out of our rec program? What are the numbers and how well and how successful were the plans, and maybe we should fund some additional things. for next year, coming into the budget, that's gonna be happening in November. I'm just using this as an
That's a good
example between Parks and Rec and.
We actually talked about having just a debrief of Kane Park only. I don't like Parks and Rec general, Kane Park only at the end, when the season's over. So, I hear you.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, I assume you're gonna have your own department, and I assume it's gonna be a department, its own independent department at some point, at least that's what was pitched to us at one point. But that's a little bit unique. Having a council member attached to Kane Park, I'm not sure it's necessary, but certainly we know I'll pick October again. October is when we're gonna get an hour debrief. And that's sort of like the Cleveland Heights way. So when we're not here next October with a new council or whatever that is, October's the month you report out Kane Park. And it's a very, very regular, it's a little bit more regular, so you know what you're coming into.
Maybe we
each
should
month, each
chart
meeting.
that kind of stuff out, like what the regular things are that we want in a given year and
I think especially,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, especially as we're sort of running down to the end of the year. I could imagine each one of us, I think about the short-term rental, legislation. I can see how that will play out across the meetings, throughout the fall. And I would have, so we could all kind of say, these are our things we have to get done and here's how we see it working, and give that to Addie to spreadsheet it. And then you can see where the meetings have to occur.
Well, I'm glad we had this conversation because, we are trying something new and it's working in some ways and needs little adjustments. Nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to tell you about my little president's president of council report. This is just one thing I started last year. We did it, so it was mostly from Cuyahoga County, but there were a few people from Medina, Summit, Lorain County. There were a couple of stragglers from outside of the county. And last year there were 10 people and we did 10 council presidents, and we did it in Cleveland. They were the hosts. This year we did it in Brooklyn Heights and 30 council presidents showed up. I was kind of blown away. And we talked about the role of council and the role of the council president. And we kind of looked at every topic that we talked about from like, what is our responsibility as leaders of council? And so we went over, kind of the formal roles of council and everything. There was one woman, new council president, she'd been council president for 2 weeks because the North Royalton mayor stepped down like last month and she just got thrust into this whole thing. So she was probably the most grateful person that was there. And several cities offered to share their new member orientations, which was nice because there were many cities that didn't have any of that when you have a new council member. It was interesting when we talked about the bi-weekly agendas. Some council president and law director, some did it council president and mayors, some were the mayor and the law director did the agenda. So it was interesting just hearing about this. Everybody agreed we ought to have the agenda 5 days ahead of time, and everybody said that they did. Everybody. I was kind of surprised that it was that universal. We talked about requesting information from the administration. There were a lot of cities that just do that by a handshake. I, as much as I could, just said, if I were you guys, I'd codify it. Either not necessarily in the charter, but I'd put it somewhere. Because, people come and go and you want to make sure that you have the right to have timely information. We talked about working with the clerk of council and the law director. There were several small cities that don't have a clerk of council, which I'm not sure exactly how stuff gets done, but it does. Because we all know how much
Usually
Daddy
they
does.
split up the duties between multiple different people. That's typically what happens. They don't have the same thing.
Yeah, we talked about handling disruptive public comment people and all that. Some cities had 5 minutes for public comment for each person. Oh my God.
That's a whole story, that's like a
We-
monologue.
We would be here, I mean, not every night, but some nights that would be a really long night. Of course, we went over budget authority. It was interesting when we got to kind of the grab bag of flock cameras, deer management, ranked choice voting. When I said ranked choice voting, most people looked at each other and had no idea what it was. That was the main, like, what is it? Dealing with the media and so forth. We all Airbnbs, a lot of cities in the midst of
There's
that now.
stuff being passed regularly now.
So at the end, we all said, hey, let's do this again. I got a lot of really great feedback, both there and via email. Everybody wanted to know, how's everything in Cleveland Heights?
Yeah.
Everybody knows our business, which wasn't surprising. But they were all very much wishing us well and very appreciative of how things are going now. So we're looking forward to doing that in the spring. And I just had a couple of things under other.
Can I just make a quick comment about this?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm super glad that you're doing this. This is something that we did during COVID. It started out during COVID out of a necessity of board presidents and board vice presidents, school board members getting on a Zoom call, meeting with regional cities. And the stuff that we learned, the best practices that we picked up and we were able to give back, that collaboration was just amazing. And then you go to these conferences and you have these people that you'd never seen face to face and they're your best pals. I mean, just the fact that you're able to figure things out together and learn and I'm just really super glad that you're going to these things because the takeaways are intense.
And Addie made a spreadsheet and we shared it with them and everybody was so glad to be able to keep in touch. People have already been calling other people. And Sarah Keppel, who's the president of the Lakewood City Council, she wasn't able to make it, but she wants to do a Zoom call with me this week to, kind of catch up. And I did do a summary and, it was great. And it was exactly what you said. It was just great to sit there and just listen to people. Well, that's not how we do it here. And there's an economic development project that's happening in Avon. And I'm not going to get into a lot of what was said because some of it might be a little embarrassing. But there was this point where they were like really upset about not knowing what was going on. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am, Mayor and the planning department and the way we get this regular briefings and everything. Because I can tell you that at least in one case was not the case. And it's causing, certainly a lot of consternation. So OMA training, are we anywhere?
We can have an update on this.
Okay, good. Because I know we want to do that. And then Eddie said, make sure okay, so we are taking, after the July 6th meeting, we are taking a break. We're hoping that, I know Eddie's gonna let everybody know that 2 readings, we need that stuff, for the next meeting. So we're already there where, any legislation coming from the administration, hopefully we can get that.
And just for clarification, we are gonna have the committee of the whole meeting on the following, the second.
The 13th.
Yeah, the 13th. Thank you for that date, Travis.
Yes,
Yes, if you want to. If you don't have anything for it, you don't have anything for it.
right, we said we place hold, yeah. And
I have another other.
And I have another other
too. Another others, we all have one.
we have
Mine's a very quick
10
one.
minutes.
Okay, so I was also, as every parent at the end of the school year, I was looking at the calendar for the next 6 months. I noticed that Yom Kippur is on the 3rd Monday of September 21st. So I wanted to bring that up, and if everyone is amenable, I'd like to suggest that we move our meeting to Tuesday, September 22nd.
I think we've traditionally done that,
Yeah.
that holiday
That's
anyway.
Big one.
Yeah, that's the one,
I would
yes, so
say just do it by motion.
that's what I was gonna, and are we okay if we do it
Do you have a
tonight?
second?
Just-
I mean, and then we
Second.
could do,
Yeah, we'll
okay,
do
and
it
then
then.
any discussion about that? All right, and then, so everybody's good with it? All right,
So I'll add that
consider that
to-
motion passed.
Well, no.
Well, no, we have to do it in
Oh,
there, yeah.
Oh, that's right,
You're not there.
that's right, yes. That's-
This is just following on the July date. This is coming from Director Zamp concerning the housing needs assessment. Work is continuing, the housing committee will be sort of shepherding that along. And the week of June 22nd, although the date has not been set, there will be a public hearing to present some of the data and have that discussion. It'll be, I think, either the 23rd or the Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, and I should know about that soon. And then he has asked to reserve time in that on that July 13th meeting date, which actually would be the traditional housing meeting, to present, do a kind of updating report on that study.
Just ask clarification, so the housing need assessment on the, where you're talking about the 23rd and the 24th, that's a
A public hearing.
And would it be a meeting of the housing committee, would it be a community?
No, it's
or
a
the-
community forum.
Okay, so staff is gonna
collecting
run
data,
it.
they're collecting community feedback, it's a feedback mechanism for the study. To collect community opinion and engagement.
Okay, so they don't need us there, but
No,
we can, we.
can attend,
yeah.
I'll get more information about it, but I just
Okay,
wanna
great.
let you know that
Perfect.
update.
Thank you.
So if everyone will recall last week, we had an executive session to discuss the applicants that we have for the two vacancies on the Parks and Recreation Board and the one vacancy on the Transportation and Mobility. I think we, for each of these, we had at least 7 or 8 applicants for each of these. And I would like to proceed with trying to get these positions filled. And based on our discussions, if anyone would like to make a motion to move any of the people that we discussed forward, I would love to have that so we can get this done by our next meeting. Does anyone want some suggestions from me? I'm glad to offer some names.
This is pursuant to your email.
Are you able to motion since you have the names?
Well, I guess,
Well, and let me ask you, you're looking to make a motion in your voting meeting, but to have the discussion now, is that what I understand? And the motion would be to ask, or you could just ask the law department to prepare legislation, is that?
well, I'm assuming that we need to arrive at some decision on some names for me to make a legislative request.
I agree, that's the first step. No, I mean, no, yes, I agree.
And so we need
Not
to
being
do-
facetious, you really do agree, yeah.
You never know.
Are these the 3 names that
So,
are in that email?
let's, I'm glad to make some recommendations. So for the Transportation and Mobility, I would like to recommend Denise Baba, if I'm saying that correctly. If you'll recall, that's the Communications and Public Advocacy Advisor at the Portage County Area Regional Transportation Authority. Amongst other things, she had a complete understanding of our complete streets and ADA, knowledgeable about federal and state funding, bachelor's degree from Northwestern and a Master of Education. Previously served on the school board in Streetsboro. I'd like to motion that we go forward with her appointment to the Transportation Mobility to fill an unexpired term. I don't think you were present, so you probably shouldn't vote. Can I just call for all in favor to say aye? Aye. Any opposition? Any other names that anyone, I guess before I made that motion, I should have asked if anyone had any other recommendations they wanted to make on that transportation mobility.
Well, if you would call for discussion, I would have said she's eminently qualified.
My bad. I'll call for discussion on the
That wasn't
next.
meant to throw shade on you.
All right, and so for the Parks and Recreation Board, I would like to recommend Donay Lusher, or Donat Lusher, I may be butchering the first name. Who is a retired executive, has coached high school track and cross country. As a teacher, has been the executive director of some YMCA camps, has lots of civic involvement. He had originally submitted an application back in 2024 and then resubmitted an application either earlier this year or late last year. So that's one person that I'd like to recommend. Is there any discussion on him or anyone else? Okay, hearing none,
You're doing motions, or is there a second?
well, I haven't made the motion. I'd like the motion for his appointment and to go forward with that. This will be filling an unexpired term. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, and then lastly, I would like to recommend Nicole McFerrin. And
For what now?
this again is for Parks and Recreation. Her application was focused, and we often ignore this, that we do have the parks aspect of that board. Her application focused on parks and trails. She's a trail runner, a former soccer player. As one of our younger applicants, a 2021 graduate from Purdue, I think we do need to have some youth on these boards. So that's who I would recommend. Is there anyone else that anyone would like to discuss? If there is not, then I would make a motion that we appoint her to the Parks and Recreation Board. Again, these are all to fill unexpired terms.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Well, any discussion further? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So do I need to get you a formal request to prepare that legislation?
Yes, please.
When's the deadline for that?
Wednesday.
This Wednesday? I've got my golf game.
Well, then you better do it tomorrow, Craig.
I got golf
That's
tomorrow.
right, you tell him.
Hey, this is a part-time job, I'm retired.
So,
Rub it in.
is there any others? Wait, that doesn't sound right.
Any others?
Does anybody else have an other? Yes,
Mr. President,
yes.
real quick, I neglected to bring someone up earlier. I just want to recognize, related to our American Rescue Plan Act efforts, along with Director Brodzinski and Tiffany Ware, our Assistant Director, Rashawn Cogwell, also was very critically involved in that effort. And she often stays at work late, and we appreciate her as well. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna adjourn this meeting at 7:28.